Ladies and gentlemen, one more session before we go for lunch. Very exciting, and you can't afford to miss this. This is a presentation which is titled The Pillars for African Aviation Sustainability. And this is by the consulting firm Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. The head of commercial and aero advisory services is the one who is going to make this presentation. He is in the person of Mr. Patrice Baudis. He has 20 minutes, and after 20 minutes, that will take us to about 1:50, if I'm not mistaken, and then we go for a sumptuous lunch, ladies and gentlemen. So if he's here, please come over. If you can do it shorter, the better. Thank you very much. Have a night.
Good afternoon. Two challenges for me right now. I'm standing between you and your late lunch, so that's one. Second, 20 minutes to talk about the pillars of sustainability in the region. That's a challenge as well. It would take more time, but don't worry, I'm not going to stand more between you and the lunch. So 3 pillars: economic, sustainability, environmental sustainability, and social sustainability for the region. So I'll move quickly on the first one, the economic sustainability. A lot has been discussed already. I'm going to start with the good news. The good news is that this region is on the path to growth, exponential. It's going to be first led by the population, which will increase dramatically over the next few years. I've just shown from our forecast the 2030 and 2035 milestones, but of course, you can imagine this going further until 2050. The GDP will grow. In fact, when you look at the numbers per year, the GDP will grow faster than the population in the region, which is good news. It means the region will become richer. Then we get the number of aircraft in service. You see also the numbers, plus 23% between now and the 2030. And 40% in 2035 compared to 2019. That's the last year where that was a bit normal. And one point I wanted to highlight also, the number of intra-regional routes. Why I'm focusing on this is because this is an important share. In fact, it's the share in the region. 50% of the routes in the region moving forward will be within the region. The second part will be routes from Africa to Europe, and from Europe to Africa, then the Middle East, and then the rest of the world. You see it's a tiny portion of 4%. So intra-regional, within the region, the routes will be very important, and you see the growth will be spectacular in the next few years. So that's the first set of good news. We need more regional trade in the region. You see this is the curve, and I'm sure in the back you can't read, the screens are small, but this is the curve of taxes on international trade within the region, and that's just for sub-Saharan Africa. It's been declining over the years, but you see on the left here, 9% on average for sub-Saharan Africa. It's still very high compared to other parts of the world. So taxes on import, cut this, is still too high in the region. More freedom of movement needed. I'm not going to elaborate on that, but the visa issues between countries is still very relevant, and we need to improve on that. And we need to get the regional trade unions like ECOWAS progressing faster to favor growth of trade in the region. Like we've just seen, the traffic within the region will be very important. I've separated the North Africa part from the Sub-Saharan Africa. That's the number of new routes that will be existing or implemented from 2019, in 2030 and 2035. So you get in North Africa about 500 more routes in 2030, and in Sub-Saharan Africa over 700 new routes, just the routes within the region. That's phenomenal. That's going to boost traffic, and that's going to boost trade within the different countries. We need to have more synergies, economic synergies needs to be found for airlines. If you look at certain statistics in the region, the average fleet size in the region is 4.4 aircraft. 62% of the airlines only have in the region 1 or 2 airplanes. In fact, actually, 94% of airlines have less than 10 airplanes. I think there's about like 13 or 15 airlines in the continent that have more than 10 airplanes. So the difficulty here is to leverage the economies of scale that you get with volume. It's been highlighted, in the predecessing speech, but this is important. You need to gain. You don't have the critical mass, so you need to develop those synergies between airlines, more partnerships, so you can gain those synergies, which will lower cost, will implement simpler setups, and smooth out the challenges from an operational standpoint. Let's move on to the environmental sustainability angle and pillar. One statistics to start, and that's in the world, it's not just in Africa, but that's in the world. You see the pie charts here, difficult to read again, but you'll see the big part, it's narrow body airplanes by segment. The darker is regional, then you have the commuter, and in red, it's the wide bodies. That's the share of the fleet in the world, the number of by number of airplanes, okay? If you look at the share of the same fleet in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, you get that picture. So 96% of the greenhouse gas emissions in aviation are produced by narrow bodies and wide bodies. So if you want to do something, you need to do something within those categories. That doesn't mean the others do not matter. They matter, but obviously to a lesser extent. So we'll come to it. There's different level of, technologies that are envisaged to decarbonize aviation moving forward. It starts by implementing continuous improvement like we've seen over the years. Over the last 30 years, we've seen about 1.5 to 2% improvement year on year in terms of fuel burn and emissions. So that's one, but the impact will be small and not enough. And you get to the scale, so you get sustainable aviation fuel, we'll talk about it, hydrogen combustion, hydrogen fuel cells, and then to battery electric, which provide the most environmentally friendly solution, but which has its own constraints. We'll come to it as well. So from a small impact to a large impact in terms of emissions, but also a lot of constraints in certain of them. If you look at the fleet by segment, so you have here the commuter, regional, from left to right, narrow bodies and wide bodies in red. And that's the cumulative number of flights for each of the categories. You realize that to cover 80%, for instance, of the commuter, you need about 200 nautical miles. To cover 80% for the regionals, that's 400 nautical miles. It's about 1,100 for 80% of the network for narrow bodies and so on. And when you look at the technologies and the different constraints that exist for those technologies, for instance, the battery, the energy density of the batteries is not there. For the first generation, we'll be able to probably equip commuters, but only to 200 nautical miles. So the payload will be the payload of a commuter, under 20 seats, and for 200 nautical miles. Maybe we'll get a second generation after that, which will take the same payload to 400 nautical miles. That's the green arrows on the top. Then you move to another kind of technology, the hydrogen fuel cell technology, where here the challenge is not so much the weight of the batteries. The challenge is more the volume of hydrogen. Hydrogen needs to have 4 times the volume of kerosene. So you need to store that volume somewhere, plus it needs to be cryogenic, so certain control of temperatures and so on. I'm not going to elaborate on the details, but basically you can get probably about 800 nautical miles with the first applications. And again, the technology is not there yet. We're talking 2035, 2040 probably in terms of time frame. And then you get H2 combustion. That's, you can burn directly hydrogen within the engines. That can equip the whole spectrum. You can go fairly far with this. But again, the technology is not just there for those applications. So in fact, when we look at already the requirements from the market in terms of range and payload, we'll quickly realize that certain technology will be favored for certain segments compared to others. And that's why, you know, between the commuters and the wide bodies, those changes in technology will start from the bottom. It will start with commuters because it's easier to implement. The battery technologies exist, the payload is small, the range requirement is smaller, so therefore there will be implementations on the commuters, so less than 20 seats of battery electric airplanes. And then you move up, you know, with more hydrogen fuel cells, and of course you move over time to reach probably the end of the half of the century with around 2050, where maybe if we're lucky there will be a start of a wide body based on hydrogen fuel. So a long path to decarbonization. If we look at these new fuels, if you want, there is a fuel we'll talk about, which is the elephant in the room, which I've not talked about, which is SAF. And when you look at this slide, we've seen these slides many times. This is our version within our forecast where we have taken maybe more realistic assumptions, and we end up about the same distributions that what we've seen with IATA, for example. You see the elephant in the room is SAF. You know, without the SAF, so the sustainable aviation fuel, which we can produce either from the biomass, which we call biofuels, or in a synthetic way from hydrogen and, you know, chemical, if you want, reactions, then electrolysis. Then we get those fuels, which are exactly the same composition of kerosene, but they're clean. They're coming from clean energies and they're clean. And if we don't do anything with SAF, it's going to be only a fraction that will be tackled by the continuous improvement. Very important. So replacing fleets, all the fleets with new airplanes and implementing any kind of improvement we can on the airplanes existing and already flying. Then the combustion, again, it's going to be a slow start, depends when it starts, but it will take time for hydrogen to get into the aviation. There's a lot of technical challenges from storage and distribution and the whole ecosystem, of course, to support that. Electricity, electric airplanes, very small portion because, you know, commuters do not consume a lot of fuel. They're very, and it's going to be mainly the application, so therefore the impact will be reduced. So it remains SAF. We will still have some offset to be done by 2050, by the way, but SAF is very, very important. So in conclusion, in this part of, you know, environmental sustainability, SAF is top of the list. We need more production from the suppliers. We need more commitment to buy from airlines. We need more mandates from the governments. And I'm going to insist on this one a bit on this slide because the mandates are important. Setting, for instance, a target from a government standpoint at 5% for 2030, 2035, for instance, like it is the case in Europe, for instance, you get a reassurance for the oil producers, for those people that will produce those fuels, that there will be at least a requirement for 5%. So these mandates help the production side to be sure that their investment, they will have to make, heavy investment, will be recouped, if you want, by the demand at that time, which will be forced to be 5% at least. And it's also good for the people buying this because they know that at that time there will be at least, you know, 5% of that fuel available, and you need to secure that as quickly as possible. So the mandates, I think, are very important as well. And all this, if we implement all that, should lower the price, because that's also the other thing. Those fuels, those synthetic fuels in particular, and even the biofuels, are more expensive to produce than the kerosene. So we will have to to develop it in more volumes, so the price go down, and we get to an equation, an economic equation for airlines, which makes sense. Otherwise, aviation has already a lot of burden in terms of economics, and you know, we don't want the fuel and the kerosene or any of these new fuels to be a further burden. So the prices need to go down. The investment in hydrogen and electric solution need to continue, because there will be a time where I think by 2050, still producing CO2, because with SAF you continue to produce CO2, you recuperate it, you know, from the other side, but you continue to produce CO2. I don't think the society will accept it any longer by 2050. So we need to prepare the next round of investment that will have to be made probably before that, but in mass after that, which will be different fuels which will not produce CO2 anymore. Hydrogen is one. So we'll have to continue investing in those technologies moving forward. Last but not least, social sustainability. Aviation plays a big role in the United Nations, 17 goals that have been set a few years ago. I've listed a few examples on the right side to support some of these 17 axes of sustainability goals from the United Nations. Aviation participates in the economic growth and productivity of countries. Offers humanitarian flights, critical transportation and logistical links, sometimes in very difficult to reach communities, essential services, training of skilled personnel compared to other industries. It's one of the most innovative industry in the world, developing very innovative solutions, IT, technical, airplanes, for the society. Recycling initiatives, environmental goals. We've set ourselves from the industry a goal of reaching net zero in 2050. Not a lot of other industries have set those goals, but aviation did. Wildlife anti-trafficking measures, engagement with communities, and so on. Okay, so aviation plays a central role in those social sustainability factors. But there's one where we need to do a bit more, I think. And you probably will agree with me, it's improving the gender equality in our industry. We still have too few ladies and female personnel, in particular at the highest position in the industry. There's a statistics that's worldwide, it's not just in Africa, but women represent only 3% of the CEOs of airlines in our industry. And only barely 6% of pilots are women. This is not enough. So there's this initiative which is very laudable. It's IATA, the 25 by 2025, which targets 25% of female, in particular female representation in senior roles or functions which are traditionally underrepresented, where women are underrepresented. So there's this objective, and a lot of airlines more and more start to sign and are signatories of this engagement, if you want, moving forward to get to gender equality in aviation, or at least try to get there by a first step of 25%. 10 airlines, I think, are signatories in Africa, and I hope there will be more. To conclude, on this, again, it's really fast and trying to browse the subjects. There's a lot to say, and we can, of course, have discussions after this and during the conference, during the next 2 days, if you want more details. But it's a delicate balancing act between those three pillars. Because if you start to put more focus, and therefore, one of the circles becomes bigger, you start to get a problem, because actually the zone in the middle, which is sustainability, start to get smaller. So if you really want to get a higher level of sustainability in aviation, you need to work together on those three pillars. You cannot just develop the economic and focus on the economic aspects without, and forget completely about the environmental aspects, because at some stage it will reduce your sustainability in our industry. So these three pillars needs to be worked on together to reach a greater sustainability center, if you want, or overlap area, which will continue to improve the situation for aviation. That's all. Thank you very much.
May I invite Ntagengerwa, the chairman of Ethiopian Airlines, to present a token of appreciation to Mr. Patrick Baudis for an excellent presentation. Something that should concern all of us is sustainability. Probably go this way so that you can get the cameras. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now 1:40. And after this, we will break for lunch. Thank you very much, sir. We will break for lunch now at 1:40 p.m. We would have 1 hour for lunch. Lunch is graciously sponsored by ATNS. ATNS has given us choices. Can you imagine, even for lunch? Ladies and gentlemen, be happy. Now from here, we will all march down to the lower ground floor. You remember where we had the cocktail last night? Those who would want to feast on an Ethiopian dish, you go there. Next to that one, those who prefer to be in Asia in Addis Ababa. Please, there's an Asian restaurant next door, you go there. All courtesy ATNS. Thank you very much, ATNS. We have 1 hour and we shall reconvene here at 2:40 p.m. sharp. Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's be on time. We are running badly behind schedule and we need to catch up. Thank you. Bon appetit.
Okay, how many Africans are here? You're laughing. How many Africans are here? A sizable number of Africans, yeah? So, first question for you, my fellow Africans. What's the population of Africa? We're not agreeing as Africans that we're how many? And how many countries? Did you hear? 54, 55? Yes. And we are Africans. I wonder if I was asking you about America, you would have all the answers. I'll give you a very simple question now. So, what language is most spoken in Africa? Who said Swahili? Stand up. You're proud to say Swahili. I'm embarrassed for you because the language is French. Yeah. French is the language most spoken in Africa. And you are my fellow Africans, you don't know this. Now some of you are changing your nationality, now you are saying, I'm not an African, no? Okay, so the longest river in Africa is the Nile River. And the third longest is? Jennifer, the third longest river is? The third longest, yeah. What's that got to do with SAATM, what I'm asking? Because colleagues, this is about you and I, this is about us. This SAATM is about us. It's not about anybody else, it's about us. The three shocks that the whole world has gone through, we are going to go through the same, we have gone through the same thing. The first one is the climate shock. The second one is the demographic shock. And the third one is the digitalization shock. All these shocks are coming through and they are going to impact what we do with SAATM. Nobody's going to implement it for us. We are going to implement it for ourselves. And now to help me unpack this whole thing, I've got a coterie of people that are champions. Adefunke, Adeyemi, Funke. Come, let's chat to these guys. That's it, yeah, that's much better. Beatrice Chaytor. Beatrice is going to tell you about the heavy lifting that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is expecting from SAATM. Beatrice, come, let's talk to these guys. But you're welcome. So, again, you know, SAATM and aeroplanes are incomplete without airports, right? Because airplanes don't go to railway lines. So I need somebody who can talk about airports. Ali, come. Let's talk about airports. And then, you know, there is the regulating part of SAATM, the people that tell us what we need to do, when we need to do it, how we need to do it, the regulators. I'm looking for a brother called Eric Ntagengerwa. Eric, and then, so I've got Continental Trade, I've got Funky Funke with a fancy hairstyle, I've got Ali with the airport, and I've got the regulator. Where is the airline? I need an airline here. Any airline volunteers? No, I can see Kenya Airways volunteering. Where's Kenya Airways? Come. Kenya Airways is not here? They don't want to volunteer. Kenya Airways, come. Julius. So now you are going to have to tell us how difficult these people are making life for you. That's your job, right? And then somebody needs to give us money because these guys sitting here, all of them talk, they don't have money. I need somebody with money. Where is my guy from UNECA? Bucket loads of money. That's what we need here. So we are complete. You can take a seat there, right? Yeah, we are complete. Okay, so here's how we're going to do this now. So can you just test your microphones? Test your microphones by asking them to say something. You can share, huh?
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are in. Funky Funke.
1, 2.
Hello.
That's it? Eric? You can share? Ali? You're going to share with Funky Funke? All right. Raphael, why are you taking my microphone? Okay. So, I was serious earlier on when I was saying, how much do you know about SAATM? How much do you, as the audience, know about SAATM? SAATM is almost like a story that I know very well. A school teacher who took a class of blind students to the zoo to see to see an elephant. School bus full of blind children taken to the zoo to see an elephant. So they were taken into the zoo, elephant was tame. He asked them, how do blind people see? By touching, right? Touch the elephant wherever you want to touch. They finish, they get on the bus, they go back to school. In the classroom, he says, so what does an elephant look like? The kids that had touched the tail said, no, the elephant looks like a snake. The kids that had touched the stomach, like mine, says, no, an elephant looks like a wall. And the ones that had touched the trunk said, no, it looks like a snake. The ones that had touched the ear, it looks like a blanket, and so on and so forth. This is reminiscent of what you guys are telling us, that SAATM is not working because each one of you is filling a different part of SAATM. There's one myth that we need to debunk. SAATM is not about fifth freedom traffic rights. It is just part of SAATM. Funke, take it over, my sister. What exactly are you at AFCAC doing to make these people know SAATM?
Thank you. So, SAATM is a pathway towards the implementation of the framework agreement of the YD. Now, I know that the YD has such a terrible reputation. We've heard YD for so many years. But here's the secret about the YD. It was actually such a visionary document, such a visionary framework agreement, that even other regions like Europe and Asia copied it. So YD is not a bad thing. SAATM is the pathway to achieving the implementation of YD. So what is SAATM supposed to be doing? What is YD even itself? YD is the agreement. SAATM is how you implement the agreement. So SAATM, just to bring it to life, SAATM is a market. So for many of us, women and men, who go to the market, you go to the vegetable stall. There are many vegetables and many vegetable sellers. It's a market. So you go in there, you stop at one, oh, I don't really like this one, doesn't look too fresh. You stop at the other one, okay, this one looks a bit better, and so on and so forth. What SAATM is supposed to do is simply to allow African states and their operators to play well together. That's it, within the framework of the continent. The third thing is under the guidelines of cooperation in a competitive environment. That is SAATM.
Wonderful. Stop right there. So Eric, you are the guys in the big building there. You came up with SAATM, yeah? What are the 3 initiatives that you put in place and you said, when this and this and this happens, it means SAATM is happening?
Yeah, thank you very much. The first thing that was done at the launching of the SAATM was to put in place an executing agency. That is AFCAC, with a mandate to coordinate, to implement fully all the pillars and the provisions of the SAATM. Number 2, there is no market without a regulatory framework. At the launching of SAATM, 3 annexes of the YD were put in place as a regulatory framework, and the roadmap was agreed by all ministers of transport how to implement, how to domesticate and to implement that regulatory framework.
All the ministers?
Yes.
From how many countries?
55.
So Robert, from your side, Robert, maybe you just need to tell us, how are you supporting these guys to achieve what they want to achieve?
Yes, I think that for those who have been following aviation in Africa, the Yamoussoukro decision started all from the Economic Commission for Africa, where I worked. So that was the root of the YD. First it was the Yamoussoukro Declaration, then it went to Yamoussoukro decision in 1999, and then AU picked up with SAATM. So we look at YD and SAATM very passionately at ECA. And we think that to fast-track the implementation of YD and SAATM, you need to understand what the problem is. And we felt that there was no standard definition of what implementation of YD means. And so we developed a methodology, which is a set of key performance indicators. And we felt that implementation of YD and SAATM means implement all the provisions of YD, and also it is regulatory documents, so competition, consumer protection, disputes. So we've managed to develop key performance indicators for member states, that is the African Civil Aviation Commissions, for airlines, and also for AFCAC. And we've used those key performance indicators. We've begun to assess gaps in member states in the implementation of YD and SAATM. We've done that for 3 countries. Based on that, we've developed action plans for those countries on how to fast-track the implementation of YD. And
are they implementing those 3 countries? Are they implementing?
We've just finished that.
Okay.
We have the action plan, and we're working closely with AFCAC and AUC to begin to close those gaps.
Okay. Ali, so as an airport operator, What are your 3 top most important things that need to happen so that you can say SAATM is happening?
Okay, thank you, Aaron. In fact, I am, as usual, I am very ambitious and optimistic, but I need to be realistic. In fact, my wishes want to be to see the implementation. First, I sincerely hope that all the effort made by AFCAC, the active Secretary General, very dynamic, bringing out new idea and so on, and with partnership with all stakeholders, want to achieve a successful SAATM, but we need magnificent result by the end of this year. The first is the firm engagement. We talk. For myself, I experienced at minimum 30 conferences and talks about SAATM, but without engagement. No, there is no engagement from government. And after engagement, we should have operationalization of this engagement. And we need to communicate. If there is something happen, to communicate. And after that, we need to have a dedicated team that works effectively. And we will market this and to show to the world that we really implement. And my hope is by the end of this year, we have one cluster putting on reality and start working. This is my...
Fantastic. So, Beatrice, from a trade point of view, these guys are talking about all these things, and you are the one that now puts the trade together. Because are they giving you the heavy lift? Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? What are you seeing from your secretariat?
Well, the AFCFTA Secretariat is actually quite happy to be a partner with both AFRA and AFCAC in trying to fast-track SAATM. SAATM the AFCAC has developed this SAATM PIP, the Project Implementation Program. It's very similar to something that we ourselves have done. We, under the AFCFTA, have developed the Guided Trade Initiative, again, to kind of encourage countries that are already there, that have already put in place their legal frameworks, to say, look, don't wait, just start. Start trading, start exporting your services, opening up your air transport services markets, and similarly to PIP. So we see some alignment between what the SAATM PIP is, where those countries that want to move faster can do so, similarly on the Guided Trade Initiative. So we are very, very happy to be a partner with AFCAC, AUC also, by the way, because we're an agency of the AU. And so we're all, it's kind of like a family business, in effect, pushing
is the family business making money?
And SAATM, yes, it will bring money. It will bring money.
Okay,
that's the whole idea.
Listen to Robert here. Robert is now the guy that is bearing the brunt of all the talk you are doing here. Like Ali says, talk. Robert is here with aeroplanes that are parked, employees that want to beat him up, pilots want to leave. What are you experiencing from SAATM as an airline?
Thank you so much. My name is Dalmas Okendo. I'm sitting in for Julius Dairu, the commercial chief at Kenya Airways. When the YD was established in 1988, I was a class 5 pupil in some remote village in Kenya. Class 5. Nearly 35 years down the line, I'm now a grown-up with some grayish beards. And we are still talking about the implementation of the YD and the single African air transport market. I think that should be an indictment on our conscience as Africans and our governments. It is sad that more than 35 years down the line, we are still talking about piloting when, those of us that were kids at the time of its inauguration are now adults. And I think we really need to speed up the implementation of SAATM. One beautiful thing with both the YD and the SAATM is that for us airlines, we now have a framework to hold not just our governments, but all governments accountable. Provided that you are a signatory to both documents, we will make our applications, set our assets, in order, ready to fly. If you hold us back, we have something to hold you to account. And I think that is important for us here. Secondly, when you look at the way airlines are generally operating, I think we are moving faster than our regulators. We are moving faster than the regulatory frameworks that both YD and the SAATM are putting in place. Because for us, once you have the assets, you do not want to keep the assets on the ground. You want to keep flying. Whether countries are still operating with the buses or under the open skies arrangement, the airlines are ready to fly. And what we need is facilitation.
Tell me, so which place did you want to fly to, but you were not allowed to fly to? You are giving me a lot of grammar here.
Yes.
Where did you want to fly to and you're not allowed to fly to?
There are several.
Oh, one. Not several, one.
I'll give you one.
Yeah.
For example, Kenya Airways applied to fly from Mombasa to Entebbe nearly 2 years ago.
Uganda. Stop right
We
there.
are still waiting for the rights to go into
Stop right
Entebbe.
there. Stop right there. You see, this is my audience. This is my constituency. These are the guys that gave me the tender to question new people like this. So I have my constituency here. They're going to tell me what you are telling me is not true. You must tell me everything. Tell it.
I know he applied 2 years ago. And he did ask through the Civil Aviation Authority. So it would be good to know why the Civil Aviation Authority hasn't responded yet. However, I also do know, because we discussed this with him yesterday, I believe SAATM works. It works in an environment where partnerships will thrive. You don't come to me and say, I want to have everything that SAATM requires. And then you dangle, but you can partner, but are you IOSA? So if you're not IOSA, you can't come partner with me, you can't code share, but I want to come and do things from your company.
Okay, so he's also to blame, eh? Okay, so now I have another constituency this side, because this constituency here needs to tell me, so what do you think these guys now need to do? Because you can see, they are talking, but they're not doing anything. Now they're blaming SAATM. See, what should they do? Him and her.
I believe, excuse me, I think what they're talking about is, they are not very clear to each other, maybe. I think they need to be very frank to each other, and yes, that's what I believe.
You're right. Well, you people are busy talking grammar like this, they're not being frank to each other. See, if you tell them exactly what you want, they would give it to you. But, Funke, so here is the thing now. The regulating authority, executing agency, everything is in place. How do you resolve this dispute?
Very good. So we are already getting disputes from airlines.
Hold on. Did you write to AFCAC? Yes or no?
No.
To
AFRA.
Okay. So you can't blame AFCAC now because you didn't write to them.
The good news is we are partnering with all of our stakeholders.
So you are writing on their behalf?
AFRA has actually written to us with a list
but
of
Funke,
airlines.
this is round and round and round.
No, don't worry. Let me land the plane.
Land it.
Okay, so first and foremost, I think it's important to debunk something, my brother, Ali. We've moved now from the talk, okay? And those of us, so what has happened is exactly this. We want to know what is the issue. We know that the narrative about SAATM has been protectionism, fear, lack of trust, and so on. We want to change that to the opportunity, the benefits, and the realization. So how are we doing that? The SAATM PIP is designed to go country by country through a coalition of stakeholders that we go into the country with, meeting with a coalition of stakeholders in the country to address what the specific challenge of that country to implementation of SAATM is. Example, we started with our host country, Senegal. We had very good interactions, and we discovered one of the key challenges is that even though it's quite high in terms of fifth freedom, access, and so on and so forth, the challenge was actually more infrastructural, okay? So we know what the challenge there is. Hold on. We've gone to Nigeria. Nigeria, we've engaged. Nigeria too, they grant fifth freedom access, but restrictions on frequency and capacity. So we know the exact problem. There are issues also, Nigeria grants visa, free visa on arrival for all Africans, but the cost is too high. So we've spoken to immigration. We went to customs. We've gone to, that's how we're doing it country by country. You were there, we saw each other in Johannesburg. We did the pre-show for Johannesburg. We've also discovered something, that there are restrictions. So even though the market is there for the taking for Johannesburg, for South Africa, they're being restrictive in terms of granting access. So what is our focus at AFCAC? We want to, again, collaborate with all the stakeholders. We are not the actor. We are just the facilitator for the actors. So what we're doing is we're going into the state. Do you grant access to the states, third, fourth, and fifth? That's the question, not one. Do you restrict frequency? Do you restrict capacity? Blah, blah, blah. And we get all this data as we go along. Then two, visa. Can you allow people to come in? I was almost turned back at the border on Saturday night when I arrived. And it happens frequently. It's one of the issues that I've already raised with the Ethiopian authorities, that we've got to address this issue. You have the largest carrier, you have the largest airline, you have the largest network. You're supposed to have the largest number of Africans flying through you. So you facilitate that with open access to Africans. And we balance that with managing the security like other countries have done.
So, drink some water. So now, Robert, see, is your money being put to good use? Are you happy with the way the money that you are throwing at this problem is being handled? Are they doing a good job of using the money?
I think that, let me first say that working with the UN, we are not really the money people per se. Perhaps we work with policies, but we try to link the African aviation industry with the development finance institutions. And we did that a lot during the COVID period, where we linked the African airlines with Afreximbank and also with the African Finance Corporation and African Development Bank. Now, is the money being put to good use? I think so. We have seen that the capacity of AFCAC is getting stronger and stronger. We've seen AFCAC recruited staff to monitor the evaluation of YD and SAATM. We've seen AFCAC develop the tools that are required with the resources, little resources that we have provided. They now have the experts, they now have the tools, and we've seen them already going and doing audits in member states. It's only through these audits that we will know, we'll pinpoint the problems in specific countries. So I think the money is being put to good use.
Okay, good. So and you are the fall guy. Everybody's been talking since morning. Everybody's been talking about the cost, the cost, the cost. Is this just an excuse these guys are using?
Thank you. Cost is part of the problem, but part of the solution also. And in Africa, and we speak about airports, if we implement SAATM in Africa, it means that we need more investment to accommodate airport to the added capacity and the added traffic. This is part of the problem. But also the part of the problem is about how a government look to the industry of aviation. And here you will understand what I mean. In fact, big part of the government looks to aviation as a luxury industry. So they charge it. they put more and more charge and taxes on aviation. Not to reinvest in airports or in the industry, but to
increase salaries.
Yeah, to finance other projects outside of the aviation. So for them, aviation is luxury and it's a resource of financing for other government projects. And this is one. The second is about how government also looked for taxes and charges. They didn't apply the ICAO regulation. They do it as they think it's better for them, not for the industry. So we should here make the difference between charges and taxes. Charges are to recover the service made by the airport, but taxes is what the government asks you to apply for the airline. And here in Africa, we are very big imaginative of creation of taxes. You cannot imagine. Taxes, maybe sometimes it's taxes on taxes or double taxation. It's the only continent in the world that are so creative in taxation. And that's why we are very, very expensive on taxation. Everyone said that. So for me, SAATM should look for this and goes to government to say we should be equal and we should be justified all the taxes you ask for. It should be in alignment with the ICAO regulation. So if you ask for a tax, you should give the service behind. Otherwise, it's not fair.
Who complains the most? Is it the airlines or is it the passengers? Who complains the most?
Everyone is complaining for that. Mainly the airline.
The airlines, eh?
But
right.
Just one to add. This is my point of view. But on the other side, we should know that airline has big role to play, because we forget that they apply excessive ticket cost mainly after COVID. The cost is increasing very high. On the other side, airports and government try to keep their tax and charges in the minimum. So it's about the cost of travel, not about the charges and taxes.
So the airlines can't complain, eh?
We complain against them.
So Eric, speed of execution, that's why that Mzee there with the gray beard is complaining that he's getting old and nothing is happening. So how do you make sure that these things that have been agreed are being done quickly?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to first of all say that at the launching of the SAATM, as you said, 55 countries had agreed on a roadmap to establish SAATM. But only 36 today have agreed to join SAATM. But even within the 36, we are seeing AfCAC working with those ones which are ready to implement. And building on the idea of AfCFTA, the PIP came to fast track all of this. Because we say that a market of 55 countries will not go at the same pace. There have to be some success stories. There have to be, even within one country, there have to be success stakeholders. This is what AfCAC is doing. So, in addition to the mission to advocate for changes of the cost, the taxes, and everything, in my view, there have to be also a continental framework to address the disputes, because the disputes will not take them one by one. So this is why the African Union last year adopted the dispute settlement mechanism. And we are hoping with AfCAC to put in place the Secretariat of this dispute settlement mechanism to start the work of addressing disputes related to SAATM, but also to the other provision of SAATM, like consumer protection, competition regulations, and all the annexes of the YD, so that the countries who have signed on SAATM can really implement. So the Secretariat of this DSM will have also a role to report to the monitoring body of the YD, which was also put in place by the heads of state. Secondly, another important milestone has to be done on the visa regime. The visa issue, we have our colleagues in charge of the free movement protocol under AU, so we need to collaborate with them so that we address the issues related to the visa and or non-tariff barriers. Thank you.
So once we fix this, it's going to move fast, right? Yes. So now I've put an airline on the spot here. So you are being accused that you are complaining that their taxes and charges are high, but you are the ones that are actually overcharging. How is this happening?
First of all, Aaron, I'm not an airline. I'm an association for the
airlines.
Air operators, yes.
Uh-huh. Talk on their behalf.
Yes.
Why are you overcharging?
We're not overcharging, actually. The tax regime is quite significant, and it does contribute to the overall charges passed to the consumer. I'll give an example of Kenya, where you find airlines paying about 4 to 5 types of charges, taxes.
45?
4 or 5.
4 or 5, okay.
Types of taxes on aircraft parts and consumables. And of course, as an airline, I must translate these costs to the user to enable me to survive. So that, I think, is how I can answer that question.
Okay, give it to the lady in front of you. Another airline. Why are you overcharging, Agnes?
We're not overcharging. In fact, for us, it's impossible. How do you overcharge when your fees are approved by government?
Your fees are?
They have to be approved by government.
They are approved by government.
Yes.
So you're not
how do
overcharging.
I recover?
So what is Ali talking about now? Ali, they are refusing. They are denying that you are overcharging these guys. They are saying, oh, we're not overcharging. There's another airline here. So why are you overcharging?
Are we overcharging? My question is, on airports,
No. I ask questions.
No, sure.
No. You answer.
But to answer your question, I say, our ticket taxes are there, and I don't think airport charges are always high. We have airports that there are 4 flights a day. They must charge for the cost. So the traveling in Africa is very expensive. I compared the other day, I don't remember, London, Dublin, you have 41 flights a day. Nairobi, Addis, which is a very good destination, how many do you have? 6. So the costs are high. The utilization of the airports is low. We airlines have to cover our charges. And if you could look at our costs, we control costs, but even then, we have to charge people because the costs are distributed by a small number of people.
So the airports are justified to increase costs, eh?
I didn't say that.
Okay, so Funke, clusters, how many clusters do we have? 6. Are these clusters aligned? Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing?
It's a very interesting question. So we have one cluster, Kenya, and the other end is South Africa. The reason why we chose that cluster, with two countries in between, Zambia and Namibia, the reason we chose that cluster is because, one, the 2 countries had already agreed to cooperate.
South Africa and Kenya.
And Kenya, exactly. 2, they've opened a free or ease of visa regime between the 2 of them. 3, the 2 airlines are already in a cooperation agreement, which is waiting to pass through competition rules. 4, there are many, many similarities in terms of their demography. They both speak English, they have similar trading partners, their tourism destinations, and so on and so forth.
And they play rugby. They play rugby also.
And that too. So the point was, why then just have the point-to-point? So, of course, for Africa, the whole point around this SAATM is to increase the connectivity. Point-to-point routes are very important. But the 5th Freedom routes do something very different and very unique. They stimulate traffic. So in point-to-point routes, you are going from the point to the point. If you can generate traffic, okay, and so on, depending on the trade, depending on business, and so on and so forth. But if you have a point in between, you're stimulating traffic for all the countries. So that is the rationale for Cluster 1. Now, speaking to alignment, again, that cluster, that's the purpose of it. And then we go to the other 2 countries to say, this is how you benefit from it. We have the second cluster. That cluster is chosen because there's already significant 5th Freedom routes. What they can do between the airlines and the states is simply extend to a point beyond. And so the airlines and the states to cooperate. So there is alignment in the method to the madness, if you
madness. Okay, so Beatrice, this madness that Funke has been trying to tell us to do, how is it translating to the Secretariat? Are you beginning to see the flow of goods and services because of these clusters?
We already see that private sector is doing it. What we think really needs to happen now is for those that are in the ministries of trade, ministries of transport, to look at the regulations, look at the policy on taxes and charges, and say, look, if our private sector is doing it already, why don't we reduce the burden? The whole idea of expanding trade is to reduce transaction cost, reduce the costs of trade, and then you will find out that in the whole scheme of things, you will not need those high taxes and charges, because through the volume, you will be able to get your tax revenue. Your tax revenue will increase with the volumes that you get, the volumes of trade crossing borders, the volumes of passengers crossing borders, business people moving from point A to point B to point C, opening business, exchanging goods and services. So that is the whole idea. And what we see in terms of under the AFCFTA is that this market, together with the market designed under SAATM that should implement YD, is really a huge market. And the possibilities are truly, truly endless. And what we are beginning to see now is the eagerness. So this is why we developed this guided trade initiative, is to say, just like Eric said, don't wait for everybody to be ready. Go in, trade with each other. And we're seeing that this, the two sides of the coin, the SAATM, the AFCFTA, will provide this whole services market, particularly the market for air transport services, developed fully. We already heard from the CEO today, the market is underdeveloped. It's underdeveloped.
It's underdeveloped and underserved. I think you need some water now.
Yeah.
So this cargo story, are your freighters busy right through?
Yes.
Where are they going to?
South Africa is one, Europe, the Netherlands,
Europe is
UK.
not SAATM, man. Where in SAATM are they going?
South Africa is one.
And then where else?
We have a lot of goods going to Nigeria, Ghana, mostly in the bellies of our passenger.
Passenger, right, okay.
Yes, yeah.
So from your side, as far as SAATM cargo is concerned, that is happening, right?
For cargo, in fact, I think the pressure on us is actually to increase our capacity.
So things are happening this side.
Yeah.
Let me find out from here. This constituency is looking at me and thinking, oh, he has left us behind. I have not left them behind. So I just want to find out from you, sir, what do you actually think they should do now? Because you see, he's saying cargo is working, and the other guy is saying, no man, the airlines are overcharging. You can see there's fighting that is taking place. How do you think from your side, what do we need to do to assist them just to see that they are actually talking about the same thing, but they are, for some reason, maybe someone speaks French, someone Swahili, but what do you think we should do to tell them that when they leave this room, they must sit and actually come up with an agreement?
Thank you very much. Well, as you will say, I think we all are speaking about the same. All the people sitting on the panel, the people who are on this side who also want to put their hands inside to help this initiative to move on. We are all speaking about the same. It's just that, as you well explained with the elephant allegory, this is what we are doing. We are seeing it from different parts. We are not sitting down and talking, saying, listen, one of the rules of negotiation, and I'm not going to teach anybody because here you all know about that, one of the rules of negotiation is to know what your counterpart is expecting from you, what is value for your counterpart for you to give. So I think this is the step. We need to hear or to understand what the other party will benefit from my side, that I'm keen to give, for me to give it and then receive what I need from the other party.
Fantastic. So I'm coming to you, constituents there. I still have to ask them another question here. But before I come to you, I want each one of you to think of two things that we are going to write down. When we leave here, we are going to write down two things that we are going to do to make sure we implement SAATM very quickly. So think about it, I'm coming to you. So Somers, where is Somers? Somers is here, right, yeah. So Somers, tell me something. So why are these other guys not signing? There's only 36 countries that have signed, 19 have not signed. What is the problem?
I think, I mean, Funke would know that even better than me. I think there are different speed. And as you said, there are 55 countries. This is not a continent of one country. There is a family of country, right? And all of them do have their own constraint, do have their own economy, do have their own speed. The question is, when will we end it? But the target of YD is 2063, right? So there is still some time to go, but we have to speed up. So if we have to do something, maybe as a suggestion, but it is already being done through clusters, maybe we have to also look at what's happening on those countries not signing and what is the root cause of where they stand. It could be because of some infrastructure issues, it could be on regulatory issues, it could be also on economic issues, or even on foreign exchange or central bank issues.
So not everybody needs to sign, yeah? Yeah, those that have not signed, let's leave them behind. So now, you have signed and you are applying, they are not giving you this license. What are you going to do now?
Thank you very much. This is my question because I'm a case study. Yeah, I need support because from African Union and AFCAC. AfriJet is Gabonese, and we signed, and Congo DRC, unfortunately my brother just left, as if he saw you coming. We had a discussion yesterday on why we are not authorized to fly into Kinshasa. And the reasons he gave, I had to immediately call AFCAC, and we found ourselves in a situation where he was defending the BASAS, and AFCAC was talking about SAATM and YD. And at the end, we left without an answer. So I need to leave Addis with the solution. That's why I'm here.
So you see, Eric has just told you that there are dispute resolution mechanisms. You must now write to him and say, this is our problem. We need the problem to be fixed. So that's one of Eric's to do. When we meet next year, I'll be the moderator of this section. I'm going to ask them, what have you done next year? Okay. Not in 2 years, now. Okay, so Beatrice, let's start. From a trade point of view, 2 things that you're going to do to make sure SAATM is happening. 2.
We are going to make sure that the 22 schedules...
Wait. I need a secretariat to write these things for me because it's a commitment. Maureen, thank you, my sister. Please write it. Yeah. This is a commitment, right? Yeah, right? Beatrice, Chaytor, AFCAC. This is a commitment.
Right. Yes.
Are you recording?
Yeah. The first thing is we're going to make sure that the 22 schedules, the adopted schedules of specific commitments that are already ready to go, in other words, they are law, ready to be implemented, those are going to be aligned with the SAATM PIP, the countries of the SAATM PIP, which I believe are 19 right now.
So 20, that's one, yeah?
20 now.
So that's one.
That's number 1.
Number 2?
Number 2 is we're going to push for more schedules of specific commitments.
How many
in
more?
All the remaining, we have 46 state parties now. So we have another 24, 20.
Arithmetic.
Yes, something like that. 20 plus, anyway, schedules. So in the 5 priority sectors, with transport being a core priority sector.
You got
We're
that,
going to push for more schedules of specific commitments to be adopted.
Very good. Give him. Drink some water, I'm coming, yeah? So, Ali, 2 things. You can use
Thank you. In fact, maybe 2 or 3.
No, 2.
Okay. The first is to develop and provision of a safe, reliable air transport in Africa. And here we need to raise the number of certified airports, which is essential for to accept all the increasing traffic. We know that we are very low in the level of safety, and we need to do more and more. And this is, it's not with ACI Africa, but all together.
So this is number 1.
Yes.
Number 2?
The second is about improving the quality of service for the customer.
Quality of service for the customer. Well done. My brother, take it off. So 2 things.
Yes. Number one, we will do 3 countries. We will do audits, YD audit implementation.
3 countries?
For 3 countries.
Which ones?
We are working with AFCAC. We tell us which countries they want based on the stars, but we will do 3. And
don't choose yourself?
We'll choose with them. And once we do that,
when is it going to be done? When are you going to choose?
This year.
This week?
We choose this month. We'll choose the country this week.
This week, yeah?
Right.
This week, they choose 3 countries and?
Right. We will do the audit. And based on the audits, we will identify in each of those countries 1 critical issues in SAATM that will help them to solve.
I think you are tricking me. Yeah? Because this is one initiative, now you're extending it. You are too clever, you. Before I come to you, yeah, there's one thing that I don't want people to talk about. Please leave elephants out of this room. Elephants belong to where? To the park. So you are busy carrying goods and passengers to these countries, and your money is stuck there. Why didn't you tell me that you are not getting money from these countries?
Some elephants are too big to be ignored. Eh? And the challenge of blocked funds is one of them. We are expected to fly. We are ready to fly. We keep increasing our capacities. But how do you continue flying when within Africa alone you have over 1.8 billion
Tell me the countries. Tell me the countries. Which countries?
Nigeria.
Nigeria and?
Malawi.
Malawi and?
Ethiopia. Burundi.
Ethiopia?
Yes.
Ethiopia? You stuck money here?
Yeah.
Oh, and?
It is public knowledge. Eh? These figures are
and
all over. Zambia for some airlines.
So this money is stuck there?
The monies are stuck there.
You have
some
spent
of which
this money, cost and everything, and now your money is stuck.
We can't bring the money back home.
Robert, how can we say SAATM is working? Their money is stuck. No, man. This one we must fix it right now. Let's come. Oya? No. Oya, come.
No, but I think that is a critical issue. But I think someone mentioned it's about the 2 countries sitting down and iron this out. But it shouldn't be a very difficult. It's dialogue between the 2 countries. Yeah.
That's the solution you're giving him?
It is more difficult than just 2 countries sitting together, because if it is sitting, we have been sitting forever, from eternity to eternity.
Okay. She's giving a solution, dispute resolution. Eric, we are going to register this under your initiatives. Eh? Sure. So, madam, dispute resolution is in place. They are not using it. Huh? Now they can't blame SAATM. Eric, 2 things, my brother.
Yeah, number 1, we are going to make sure this dispute settlement mechanism is up and running by end of this year.
Maureen? End of the year?
Yes.
We are in May.
I'm being realistic.
Oh.
Okay,
We have a problem.
the earlier the better.
So that's the year, then it's almost next ASC. When is the next ASC? Where? Okay. But
Good.
that time you are still.
Thank you, Maureen.
That's number 1. Number 2.
Okay. Number 2, we are starting an initiative to establish a continental seamless airspace to harmonize procedures, because they are also part of the reduction of the cost of operations. This one we're going to work with ICAO and AFCAC, and we are starting this month.
This month, May. Okay.
Thank you.
Maureen, how many do we have now, Maureen? 8. Because I want to come to this champion now, because the blocked funds is for me and him, because there's a commission for me.
Yeah.
So, two, Oya?
Yeah, I think for us, number 1 is to enhance our partnerships. The Pan-African Airline Group is a vision that we want to keep pursuing. KQ and South Africa are currently on board. We want to bring on board more partners. In the immediate, we are looking at somebody from the West. So partnerships is one. Number two is...
Wait. When? I need time frame.
Before the end of the year, the third partner will be on board.
What does on board mean?
Will be part and a parcel of the Pan-African Airline Group family.
This is also big grammar, eh? But anyway, I'll take it. Maureen, you accept that one? One, eh? Second one?
The second one is just increasing our route network, given that
to where?
Within Africa. Right now we are doing 34. We want to do more than 34.
How many?
Increase it even to 50.
50. Maureen,
if that would be possible.
50. You're going to increase.
Yeah.
She's asking 5 for 5 years. No way. So, Funke, now, here's the thing. I'll give you my microphone. Don't worry. Drink some water. So, you remember that famous author from Nigeria called Chinua Achebe? Chinua Achebe has got this story moon, eh? And he says, when you call your neighbors to your compound because it's moonlight, it doesn't mean they don't have the moon in their compound. When they come to your compound and they are together, whatever problems you have, you're going to share them together. Whatever aspirations you have, you're going to share those aspirations together. So under the moonlight, you're breaking kola nut and you are drinking yogoriko, then everything begins to happen together. I'm giving you a special dispensation, 2 initiatives plus 1 extra one.
It all starts with the conversation. So our first thing is we continue the advocacy on the benefits of SAATM and also to close the knowledge gap about SAATM so that we don't have this elephant in the zoo with the blind people.
Maureen, did you get this one? This is a very big grammar one because it's negotiation. Can you just break it down for me? You are going to do what?
We're going to talk to the states and the airlines. The states in our 6 clusters, plus 2 states that have not yet joined SAATM. So which 2? Okay, Uganda and Tanzania.
And Tanzania.
Yes, we've already started the conversation.
Okay, number 2.
Yes. So sorry, the first one, what I said, our first 2 clusters. So 6 countries. We've started the roadshow. We'll complete the roadshow this year, and the roadshow is number 2. So number 2 is implementing the SAATM PIP as we have outlined. And that is for us to enter into these states and their airlines to address the issues of market access, the issues of visa regime, the issue of high cost, and the issue of trade and route development and tourism. So we go into the countries on that basis, implementing the PIP.
Maureen, you got that? Okay.
Yes. Number 3 is monitoring. That's one thing that we don't really talk about a lot in Africa. So at the end of this year, we're going to report back. We launched SAATM PIP on the 14th of November. 14th of November of 2023, we're going to report on our progress on the SAATM PIP across the first 2 clusters and the 2 countries that have not yet joined SAATM. We're reporting to the African Union, to all of the countries, and all of you.
Very good. Very good. So now, my constituency, I also need you to give me 2 initiatives that you are going to say, if this happens, SAATM is happening. Who's got any suggestion? I like this constituency because it means my tender is not going to be cancelled.
Thank you, Aaron. I'm Sisi Abdullahi, and I work for a ground handler. I handle, all the airlines that are here also. The initiative that I just would like, to put on all, the panelists, one is together that they go to meet, the, the countries, because if ACI is not there, AFCAC is doing it alone, airlines are not there, AFRA is not there, they will meet again next year, sitting in a panel, everybody defending, his share. You see what I mean? Every initiative that AFCAC is taking, meeting the countries, it should be with ACI, with the free trade, AFTA, with airlines representative, and with AFRA. And the finance guy, of course. Thank you.
So Maureen, you got that one, right? Fantastic. Constituency? There's one more here. I think this tender will be going for another 3 years, I can tell you now.
Tilman Gabriel, airline consultant, professor, and the interim vice chancellor of the first African Aviation Aerospace University in Abuja. You are much too impatient. You are all much too impatient. I have been through this in Europe. We needed 15 years to get all the regulations that you can say come from ICAO, but you have to have in AFCAC, and now I'm so happy that you are there, these two ladies and many more, that you really drive it. But you need to get, and that's my recommendation, you need to not do road shows and be the sort of the cookies. You have to get these people in. That's what we did in Europe. We had working groups out of the airlines because that's who you affect with your regulations and with trade and whatever, and the problems. And the fees, who is talking about fees? That's last, and fees of airports, you cannot regulate with AFCAC. Get to the real sense of it. Get AFCAC to be the EASA of Europe, of Africa, I'm sorry, and get the rules going and have then everything developing further. You have to start with the Adam and Eve first. You have to have a common sense and you have to drive, and that's what you're doing. And appreciation, that's obviously not there because everybody wants his own country, blah, blah, blah. And get going with the further harmonization. Thank you.
Funke, you see, you have just been given a new job now. You are going to manage Europe also. Actually, Europe copied from us. Do you know that we started this thing before the Europeans? And besides, Professor, there's only 27 of you in Europe. We are 55. So relax, Professor, relax. We got this right. We got this together, guys. Maureen, so we've got our marching orders, right? Can I just, you want to say something? You're not going to answer, Professor. This will not end. What thing happened? What thing you want to say?
Thank you. So we have this coalition in place. AFCAC is not going alone. We can't do it alone. As we said, we're just here to facilitate and coordinate. So with every roadshow, and I know it's very interesting, but this is how we move. We move, as they say in MTN, we move with AFCFTA, with AUC, with ACI, with UNECA, with Airline Association, IATA, AFRA. That's how we move. So we're going as a coalition into the countries to meet with them. On top of that, we have all of these working groups that we work on a regular basis. Final point, I want to make a personal paid announcement. On Wednesday, we're having the Ethiopia Roadshow. So it's here in this venue. We're going to, please, all of you are invited for those who are staying behind. We're going to be engaging at that level and you will see what it looks like. And on Thursday, we're going now into the agencies to meet with all of them. Immigration, customs, chambers of commerce, tourism, trade, finance. That's how we're doing it.
Well done. Okay.
Can I amend my second commitment?
Maureen, she's talking to you. She wants to amend. Is she allowed?
I am. I'm allowed. I'm allowed because if I shorten my timeline, within this year, we would have started the regulatory framework for transport services under the AFCFTA.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You shorten. Okay. All right. Now, one last question to my constituency. Are you happy that we are going to implement SAATM? I want one answer from everybody. Are you happy? Yes. Well done. Thank you very much. Can you clap for my audience, please? Thank you very much. I wish you all the very best. Collect your money and commission for me. Please, let's start trading. Yeah, and Funke, you are going to start managing Europe. You start with France and Spain. Ali, don't overcharge, right? The airlines are complaining, and you, my brother, you have a big job to do because you need to start contraining these people that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Don't give them money. If they don't they want money, make sure that they've done what they're supposed to be doing. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Aaron and his able team. SAATM is done. Next year, we only come in here to get feedback. So, ladies and gentlemen, just stand here and I would invite the Secretary General of AFRA to please come up and do us the honors of handing over tokens of appreciation. as our sign of appreciation for their commitment to implement SAATM by next year this time. Ladies and gentlemen, we are moving forward. Immediately after that, I would want to invite the representative of COMESA to come up and give us a 15 minutes presentation on the support to air transport sector development program and its intended outcome. So I would appreciate if Mr. Francis Okome is around. Please just get yourself ready, and as they get off the podium, you come over and do your presentation. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Well done, well done, well done, well done.